Erev Tov Ramah Galim. We hope that all of you had a wonderful Jeff Afster Yom Sport today. It's very clear that the Ruach meter at camp is as close to 100% as it could be after everyone's participation today. And we are pleased to have yet another installment of our wonderful Hargaot. And it's my pleasure to now hand things over to Daniel, who is a current Bogrim Chanich, camper Chanich. And take it away, Daniel.
Hi, my name's Daniel Sokoler. I'm currently a sophomore in high school, and I've been going to Ramah since like the first year. And today, like, my mentor is here to like talk about Judaism and baseball. And he's actually from LA, and he went to Ramah Ojai as both a camper and a counselor. And he's the former president of my synagogue in Sacramento, Mosaic Law. And he's worked as a lawyer and lobbyist, and he is proud to be both Jewish and a Dodger fan.
Thank you, Daniel. I want to thank Avram. I want to thank Rabbi Sarah also. I have something for you tonight, so I'm going to pull it up. And I know I can't see you out there in the field, but now just bear with me here while I pull up the animation or the video panel, because I want this screen up here. Okay, there we go. Daniel, give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Beautiful. Okay, well, so let me just read for you the top. I imagine that many of you read Hebrew, but some of you may not. So the top says Harga'ah, and the next line says the second of Menachem Av, 5780. So we just entered the month of Av, and in Judaism, the calendar begins at sunset, or sundown, I should say. So today was Rosh Chodesh, was the beginning of the month, but now it's almost the evening. So we're just going to say it's the second of the month of Av. And we always put the word Menachem in front of the word of Av, because Av, many terrible things happen. I'm sure you've heard of Tisha B'Av and probably be observing that at camp. So we use the word Menachem as a source of comfort. But Av, the month of Av, after Tisha B'Av, also is a source of joy. And so I think in that spirit, we're presenting this program tonight. So now I can't see your show of hands, so I'm going to ask everyone to do this at home. And please don't be shy. I know you may be by yourself, maybe with family, maybe with friends, but please do vote. So I've got two questions for you. So among the following, and Daniel, you get to vote here. What is your favorite sport to play? And so we've got four: basketball, football, soccer, and baseball. So Daniel, you have to vote. So I'm going to say these again. I want to see your arm go up, Daniel. Basketball. Ah, there you go. Okay, basketball, football, soccer, and baseball. And basketball, in fact, is fairly popular. It is an extremely popular sport to play. And in fact, it's one that probably requires the least amount of equipment. It's a hoop and a ball, and two people can play. But of course, the others are popular too. And incidentally, this doesn't dismiss all the other sports that are out there. And I know that Ramah Galim is very into swimming. There's gymnastics, there's skiing, there's dancing, there's so many different forms of exercise, there's golf. But I'm asking this in the context of the team sports. And so I'm going to add one here. And so, Daniel, I need to see your hand up this time as well. Among the following, what is your favorite sport to watch? So is it soccer? And this could be college, it could be pro, it could be amateur, it could be Olympics, it doesn't matter. Soccer, football, ice hockey, basketball, or baseball? So we have a vote for baseball. So the following is Daniel's favorite sport to watch. And it's my favorite sport to watch also, although in the United States today, football has eclipsed the others, and soccer is increasing in popularity. Hockey is a little bit complicated in terms of its television. It's a little bit more regional, but those who are fans of hockey, they are huge devotees. But baseball is a question it's a little bit more intertwined in American history. And there is a question, is baseball the Jewish sport? And I want to read you something. So as Peter Miller, who directed the film Jews and Baseball, an American Love Story, so aptly noted, the relationship between Jews and baseball serves as a wonderful lens for looking at the broader experience of Jews in America. The story of a once marginalized people finding their way into the American mainstream offers lessons for a country that continues to grapple with its ideal as a place where talent should overcome prejudice, where we can retain our differences while still being American, where anyone can hit or pitch or run, can be part of the magic and drama of our national game. In writing in Tablet magazine, John Wertheim confirmed that the title of Miller's documentary was hardly an overstatement, that the name of the documentary, Jews and Baseball, an American Love Story. He added, after all, there is a baseball Talmud. Suffice it to say, there is no hockey Haggadah. Now, I'm going to show you where I think that baseball is the Jewish sport. And baseball relies on tradition. You know, if you were a baseball player today and you played someone, let's say, in a time machine back in the 1920s, you'd basically be playing the same game. I could tell you growing up many decades ago that the NBA, National Basketball Association today, the rules have changed so many times. Football has changed so many times. These games are very different, and they don't respect the same tradition that baseball does. So that's one reason why I think that baseball is the Jewish sport. Here's another. Baseball is the only team sport that has no clock. Jews have a unique understanding of time. In fact, in our belief, God actually created time. When God created light, and then he separated the light from the darkness. And when he did that, he created time. So in the Jewish tradition, we are not controlled by time. In fact, we believe that God controls time. And on Shabbat and on holidays, we don't look at our watches. We're not bound by the clock. Baseball has no clock. Here's another reason. Well, baseball is 90% mental and the other half is physical. That was a quote by Yogi Berra, who was a catcher in baseball, and he had lots of funny sayings. But the common answer is that Jews are or tend to be smart. But the Jews are smart explanation obscures more than it illuminates. Aside from perennial nature or nurture questions, there is the more difficult question of why that intelligence was so often matched by such bracing originality and high-minded purpose. But as the story of the Lithuanian rabbi suggests, Jewish genius operates differently. It is prone to question the premise and rethink the concept, to ask why or why not, as often as how, to see the absurd in the mundane and the sublime in the absurd. Where Jews' advantage more often lies is in thinking different, and baseball is a game where you have to think.
This is Luke Appling, a Hall of Fame shortstop who played in the 30s and 40s. Luke went on to play in some old-timers games, but as Luke got older, he got better.
75-year-old Luke Appling, who still works in the Atlanta Braves organization, facing Warren Spahn, deep to left field, way back there, home run, Luke Appling, 75 years old. Oh, you gotta love it. Is that great, Red?
I told you when you were talking about him at the start, he could still swing that bat 75 or nothing.
Appling rumbles around the bases, 75 years old.
And you could see that the Torah considers old age to be a virtue and a blessing. The Hebrew word for elderly is zaken, which is an acronym for zeh shekaneh chokhmah, a person who has acquired wisdom. And here's another reason. Oh, I'm going to move Daniel here so you can see this part. Justice. Baseball relies on justice. You shall appoint judges and officers in all your gates. Here, I'm going to minimize you and move this over here. Said Rabbi Yitzhak, two things are in God's hands, the soul and justice, said the Holy One. You watch out for justice, and I will watch over your souls.
Strike?
But most umpires aren't like that, just for the record. Okay, now here's my favorite slide. Because baseball is a lot about listening and telling. And we have a Torah portion, Ha'azinu, which means you shall listen. And we have a Passover Haggadah. Haggadah means telling. Listening and telling are part of the Jewish tradition. A baseball announcer has to tell a story and yet has to listen to the crowd. Baseball has a lot of dead spaces, in which point they're able to tell us more about the players, about what they're doing, about all the little spaces in between. And they use the crowd to tell the story. Unlike basketball, which is action, 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 or football, which is stop, start, stop, start, baseball has its own rhythm, and it requires the ability to listen and tell the story. And you're going to hear a couple of clips today where the baseball announcers will actually let the audience tell the story. I'll just show you a couple of the greats who could listen and tell. There is John Miller from the Giants. There was Harry Carey from the Cubs. There was Bob Uecker from the the Brewers. Ernie Caldwell from the Tigers, and the incomparable Vin Scully from the Dodgers.
Wonder of wonders, miracle of miracles, God took a Daniel once again, stood by his side, and miracle of miracles, walked him through the lion's den.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
Did you notice how he told the story? He let the crowd tell the story for him, just as when we lead a Pesach Seder with our Haggadah, we not only just talk, but we actually listen. Now, this was a great miracle in baseball. The reason why this was considered the most significant moment in World Series history is that Kirk Gibson, who just hit that home run, he was so injured, he actually couldn't walk. And not only could he not walk, the idea that he could actually get up and bat and face what at that time was the league's best relief pitcher in Dennis Eckersley, and then hit a home run and win the game was an incredible miracle. It wasn't the last game of the World Series. In fact, there have been some World Series that have been won on home runs, but this one was considered the most significant. But frankly, so much of baseball about whether the players can be in the right position, whether they make a double play, whether they do the little things, is in fact a very Jewish notion. That in fact, we're not expecting God to be parting the Red Sea every other afternoon. That the truth is that when we walk outside and we see people smiling, we see a tree, we see a blade of grass, we see a puppy dog, we see our grandparents, those are miracles too. And just the fact that we're all here together is a miracle. And that's a big part of baseball. It's not only the big ones, it's the little ones. Miracle. Now, you have in baseball the idea that all sorts of nationalities have been able to partake of this. It's not a game where you have to be of a certain height or weight. In fact, we've had short players, we've had tall players, we've had players from all around the world. And in fact, each community that has fielded a ball player that's done well has instilled pride in that community. And I just want to show you the sample that I've picked for you. A couple of them are Asian, but they come from different countries. So in the upper left corner, you have Hung Chi Kuo from Taiwan. And right below him, Hank Greenberg, who was the first kind of major Jewish star. And then to the right, Jackie Robinson, who in the more modern era was the first African-American player. Right below was Roberto Clemente, who was the first major Puerto Rican player. Above him was Big Papi David Ortiz from the Dominican Republic. To the right of him was Hideo Nomo from Japan. And when he would play, all of Japan would watch. And then underneath that, Fernando Valenzuela was not the first Mexican-born player, but the first one to make a real impact, not just again in the United States, but in Mexico. Below him was Joe DiMaggio, who really excited the Italian-American community. And then to his right was Chan Ho Park from Korea. And the Korean nationals would watch when he would pitch. And right above him was Karl Yastrzemski, who was a big hero in the American Polish community. And this is a big Jewish notion. Ve'ahavtam et hager ki gerim hayitem. You shall love the stranger, for you were strangers. And that's a game, or that's something that baseball has adopted. Now, the Jewish contribution has been significant. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now, because there have been many really tremendous Jewish baseball.
In the 8th inning, Greenberg walloped that apple for a home run.
Euclid around third. The Red Sox will walk off with a win.
Now, Euclid, is he a Greek kid?
I think he's Jewish, yes.
We got a Jewish first baseman. I didn't know that.
Not supposed to be a ball player if you're Jewish. You ought to be an attorney or a doctor, but not a ball player.
The stereotypical image of Jews as being bad at sports is not new, it's old. But in America, partially through baseball, those stereotypes did get overcome.
Al Rosen parks a pitch in the left field stand.
There's been an almost unbroken string of first-string important players in every decade.
My dad counted
encountered a huge amount of anti-Semitism, and he made the decision in the middle of a pennant race, when the Tigers hadn't won anything in decades, to not play on Yom Kippur in a world and in a city that had no idea what that even meant.
It wasn't easy. You hear a lot of racial epithets coming from the stands. You hear from other players on other teams. And there's a time to do what you have to do to stop it.
Koufax did not pitch on Yom Kippur.
But this is now the World Series. There's a lot at stake.
Amazing. Enormous.
This was tremendous drama.
The hotel wanted to exclude Phil Weintraub and Harry Danning because they were Jewish.
As soon as you struck out, you know, you were not only a bum, but you were a Jewish bum.
Every home run he hit was a home run against Hitler.
You'll take all of us, or you will take none of us.
Sandy Koufax was Pablo Picasso of pitching.
I was just throwing as hard as I could, and I was throwing it where I wanted to, which was kind of amazing.
Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed a perfect game.
Suddenly I had a hero, and that was Sandy Koufax.
The Dodgers are the new world champions.
Ryan Braun with a home run.
Dana Brewers hit 2 homers in 1 week to win games. Our guy.
The intertwining of Jews in America and Jews in baseball is a complete circle for this people that came here under difficult circumstances over the last 100 years or so.
So I had read you before the little description of that. Now, I want to show you what Tabla magazine says the best Jewish players by position. So some of these names you might recognize, and some of them are a little bit older. So Harry Danning was in fact mentioned in that little video clip from the New York Giants. That goes back a ways. Hank Greenberg, very famous from the Detroit Tigers, the first major Jewish superstar. Ian Kinsler has played for many teams, the Rangers, the Tigers, the Angels, among others. Lou Boudreau from the Indians, Al Rosen from the Indians, Ryan Braun, who's playing now, Sean Green, who played for the Dodgers and the Mets, Sid Gordon, who played for a few teams, the Giants, the Braves, and the Pirates. Sandy Koufax, who was mentioned, probably the second best lefty ever in baseball history after Whitey Ford. And Craig Breslow as a relief pitcher. And Salon magazine, which is another one, ranked the top 18 all-time Jewish players. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll go through the top 5 here. Al Rosen, Lou Boudreau, who you just mentioned, Rod Carew, who was a Panamanian. He played for the Twins and the Angels. I used to go see him play all the time. He played first base. Hank Greenberg, again, first base for the Tigers, and the incomparable Sandy Koufax, left-handed starter for the Dodgers. And currently, here's all the list of the Jewish players. Now, the blue just indicated that they had their own links. Some of these names I don't recognize. Richard Blyer, Ryan Braun is a star with the Brewers. Alex Bregman is a star with the Astros. Craig Breslow, Scott Feldman, who's actually very prominent with the Astros. You see a couple of them are in the Astros. Max Fried with the Braves, Sam Fuld with the A's, Ian Kinsler, I mentioned, Dean Kremer, Bob Melvin, John Moscott, Jock Peterson with the Dodgers, Kevin Pillar, he's a tremendous player with the Blue Jays, Larry Rothschild, Robert Stock, Garrett Stubbs, Rowdy Tellez, Danny Valencia, and Dan Worthen. Now, Daniel asked me to include this, so I did. There's a whole question about Jews and Yom Kippur. And Hank Greenberg was the first player that refused, that he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, that you could see that he led the league in home runs 4 times, drove an incredible 184 runs in a season, and won 2 MVP awards in a 13-year career. He's the all-time Jewish home run king with 331 dingers. He did not play on Yom Kippur in 1934. If you imagine this, long time ago, predating the more famous decision by Sandy Koufax by 31 years. Now, in 1965, The first game of the World Series between the Dodgers and the Minnesota Twins fell on Yom Kippur, the holiest Jewish holiday. Now, incidentally, back then, the season was shorter and we didn't have all the playoffs. We just had the National League and we had the American League, and whoever won both, they went to the World Series. So it was earlier in the year. Today, the World Series is the end of October. Ordinarily, Koufax would have pitched that game, but he decided not to play on the holiday. And Koufax, incidentally, was not religious, but he didn't play because he was Jewish. So Don Drysdale, who was another pitcher, was also an amazing pitcher. He pitched for the Dodgers, but he lost. So when the Dodger manager, Walter Alston, came out to the mound to take the ball from Drysdale and take him out of the game, Drysdale quipped, "I bet you wish I was Jewish too." In 2019, Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros, Jock Peterson of the Dodgers, and Max Fried of the Atlanta Braves were all confronted with the same dilemma of playing on Yom Kippur when their respective teams were deep into the first round of the playoffs. So we're not talking about the opening. We're talking deep into the playoffs. They all chose to play and their teams all lost. So this is something for you Ramahniks. If you make it to the major leagues and you are on Yom Kippur, your place is in shul. Is that right, Daniel? Thumbs up? There you go. Okay. Now, here's something that not a lot of people know about. I'm going to introduce you to a character in baseball history, a Jewish character. It's got a real interesting story. Here you go.
Whenever you're talking about anything with Mo Berg, the first thing you have to understand is it's going to be complicated.
It's a hell of a story.
He loved being a mystery.
Mo Berg was a terrific athlete. Mo would disappear after games.
He was very charming. The girls would go gaga.
He was a loner who wanted to experience the world and found a way to do it.
Who is this guy who could do all of this?
He was smart and he was funny.
Casey Stengel said he could speak 7 languages, but couldn't hit in any of them.
Brain and brawn really does make Mo Berg the ultimate Jewish athlete.
Mo Berg was very aware that peace was going to be disrupted in the world.
The catcher has to have that bird's eye view.
Was he doing intelligence work while he was still in baseball?
He's assessing what's in front of him, where the base runners are, how fast they are, what score is it, what inning is it, who's pitching, what's his stuff, who's up, what can he hit, what can't he hit, how do we win the game.
Here's a guy who went to Princeton, Columbia, spoke many languages, was a professional baseball player. I mean, he wasn't real, you would have had to invent him.
Germany got a big head start on building an atomic bomb.
And it was very obvious that if anybody could ever unlock this great secret, they'd control the world.
The OSS had given the Manhattan Project its own spy, and that was Mo Berg.
It had to be about as dangerous a job as a fellow could undertake. He went behind the lines in a war where a man's life isn't worth 2 cents, you know. I think it takes a great patriot to do something like that.
Mo Berg's father never went to see him play a single game. But Mo Berg said he'd rather be a baseball player than be a Supreme Court justice. What he wound up being is an American hero.
So if you catch that, Mo Berg was a Jewish baseball player who became a real important spy for the United States in World War II.
A country that hardly plays baseball at all just went undefeated in the first round of the World Baseball Classic. Team Israel started 3-0 to the surprise of pretty much everyone, and as you might expect, there's more to this than meets the eye. Team Israel took advantage of an unusual WBC rule. To play for a team, you only have to be eligible to be a citizen of that country. You don't actually have to be a citizen. And since anyone who's Jewish can be granted Israeli citizenship, any Jewish ball player can play for Team Israel, no matter where they live.
It's nice to play on a team that has a common goal and a common thing in common that we're all Jewish. Until this, in 2012, I'd never played on a team with more than 2 Jewish guys on at a time, and I'm just using one of those Jews.
Most of the team is made up of American minor leaguers. Only a handful are on a big league 40-man roster. The team's one native Israeli is a 38-year-old pitcher who works at a winery in New York.
Repeat after me.
Okay.
אנחנו על המפה גם בבייסבול.
The team got pretty creative tracking players down, as one shortstop can attest.
They went on Facebook, they looked me up, they saw a picture of my mom, they clicked my mom's Facebook, they saw she's from New York. A lot of Jewish people live in New York, apparently.
The team even has an unofficial mascot, the Mensch on the Bench. They hope he'll make a trip to the championship.
Every 4 years, Major League Baseball puts on the World Baseball Classic. The baseball equivalent to the World Cup.
It gives us a chance to see the best players in the world.
When I found out Israel was going to have a team, I thought it was a pipe dream. I never thought it was going to happen.
We've got Zide, we've got Baker, we've got Bleish.
Everybody needed to be Jewish, so there's no big name recognition.
Jason Markey, he was in Disneyland with his kids. He said, you know what? I'm looking to make a comeback, and maybe this could be the comeback.
We all have a chip on our shoulder.
I'm very excited. Should I look at you or should I look up there at the camera?
One. Mike Davis with a drive deep to right center field.
One thing about playing for Israel,
Mazel tov.
a lot of people don't like Jewish people.
I hope one day they'll have, a Palestinian team from throwing stones.
For those of you who don't know, there was a terror attack.
Oh my God.
Why you come here to Israel and not stay in America?
You guys are going to be Israeli warriors.
We were 200-1 favorites to win the World Baseball Classic.
For Team Israel, it's a chance for the underdog to get a crack at the big dog.
It's not about my career.
You guys aren't unknown anymore.
It's not about any of our careers.
And you thought all our people could do was finance.
It's about something bigger.
Can you please explain what the Mensch to your right is?
That's Jerry Weinstein, my manager. Oh, this.
And so Israel now has fielded a team because baseball is actually going to make a return to the Olympics. And this was supposed to be in 2020, but of course with coronavirus, it's got postponed. But they now have something new, which is they now actually have Israelis on the Israeli team. Imagine that. So it's going to be exciting to watch once the Olympics actually do take place.
So Harvey Keene is batting for Bob Henley. The time on the scoreboard is 9:44. The date, September the 9th, 1965. And Koufax working on veteran Harvey Keene. Sandy into his windup, and the pitch, a fastball for a strike. He has struck out, by the way, 5 consecutive batters. And that's gone unnoticed. Sandy ready, and the strike one pitch. Very high, and he lost his hat. He really forced that one. That's only the second time tonight where I have had the feeling that Sandy threw instead of pitched, trying to get that little extra. And that time he tried so hard his hat fell off. He took an extremely long stride to the plate, and Torborg had to go up to get it. 1-1 to Harvey Keene. Now he's ready. Fastball high, ball 2. You can't blame a man for pushing just a little bit now. Sandy backs off, mops his forehead, runs his left index finger along his forehead, dries it off on his left pants leg. All the while, Keene just waiting. Now Sandy looks in. Into his windup, and the 2-1 pitch to Keene. Swung on and missed. Strike 2. It is 9:46 p.m. 2-2 to Harvey Keene. One strike away. Sandy into his windup. Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed. A perfect game.
And did you notice? He did not let the clock control him. He told the story to remind us what time it was, which was completely incidental. And that's really what makes baseball so uniquely Jewish.
Zu der Ball gehen, zu Eulen, wo mir doch gehen. Kauf mir den misslichen Cracker Jack, will ich kein Mul von dort nicht weg. Jetzt Mut, die Ballspieler, es passt nicht, als man verspielt. Weil sie sehen, 2, 3 Strikes Neues bei der Baseballspiel. Amerika, Land, wo sich lieb, steh je bei, Madrich sei, überall echt das Strahl und zu lieb, von die Berge zu die Prairies, bis die Armen weiß mit Scheu.
I want to thank, once again, I want to thank Daniel. I want to thank Rabbi Sarah. I want to thank Avram. I have very fond memories of Camp Ramah. And just the idea that would be asked to do a program like this was a real thrill and privilege. And so I hope you enjoyed it. And season starts tomorrow. So, you know, we're going to see what happens, right?
Amazing.
You say Erev Tov to everybody, Lila Tov. You have a wonderful evening. Tisha B'Av is coming up. It's a very serious and kind of very deep and mournful day in our calendar. But afterwards, we're supposed to be hopeful, even on the afternoon of Tisha B'Av. And though it's still a fast, we can begin to feel hopeful and begin to kind of recover some of the rhythm. We're in very turbulent times. And I actually think that not having baseball has made it more complicated for Americans. I really do. I think that there's a lot of history where we use sports to see the humanity in one another. If I can have 2 more seconds, I'd like to share a story that I shared with Daniel on the phone. It's not about Jews, but you know, as you're aware, in World War II, we fought 2 wars essentially at the same time. We fought a war against Germany in Europe, and we fought a war against Japan in the Pacific. The Japanese had been playing baseball for quite some time. but they went through a period of intense militarization, and they disallowed baseball. They made it forbidden. They said it was Western, it wasn't Japanese, and so they required folks to do sumo and other kind of more native Japanese sports. Now, in the United States, we imprisoned the Japanese Americans, and we put them in internment camps. We took their property. We forced them to leave. We put them on trains, and it wasn't like the extermination camps against the Jews in Europe, but it was something that was really, really a dark stain on the American history for what we did to the Japanese Americans. Now, interestingly enough, at that time in America, there was a lot of prejudice against the Japanese. And one of the things that the Americans found was that the Japanese in these internment camps played baseball. And it was a way that actually the Americans who actually interacted with the Japanese found a certain humanity to them. But there's a second part to the story, which is in all of Japan's history, and they're thousands of years old, they've only been occupied once, and that was by the United States. It was after World War II. Now, during the war, the Japanese didn't consider the Americans to be human. It was the same prejudice that we had against them, but it was in reverse. Now, guess what happened? How did they connect? Well, after the war, they started allowing baseball, and the Japanese saw that the Americans played baseball. And so just as we saw that they played baseball, they saw that we played baseball. And this is how people began to relate to one another. It was through this sport. And we found a common humanity in one another. And I really do believe that in this period of time where we've been locked in our houses and we've had to confront some very deep issues in this country over racism and social injustice, that not having a unifying activity has made us further apart. And so the fact that this activity is bringing us back together, even without the fans, but we'll have television and we'll have radio and we'll have stories and we'll have jokes and we'll have movies and all these things. This is something that can help unite us. And so as we approach Tisha B'Av, let's just remember that. Maybe baseball isn't your favorite sport. Maybe it's not one that you would ever want to watch or would ever want to play. But in terms of its social significance and its history, it's something to keep in mind. So with that, I wish you all a Erev Tov. And again, thank you, Ramah, Galim, to Avram, and to Rabbi Sarah, and to Daniel.
Wonderful. And that's a wrap. So thank you, Jonathan, so much. And thank you, Daniel, so much. Thank you to New Frontier USY and Camp for making this happen. And Lila Tov, we will see you all tomorrow night. Same time, same place.